Have you ever found yourself torn between two decisions? You know, the kind where you have to choose between what you want and what you should do. Welcome to Pill for Philo, the place where great minds come to discuss ideas and seek practical solutions to everyday issues. Before we start, please subscribe to the channel by clicking the button below this video so that you can get notified whenever I upload a new video. If the questions at the beginning made sense to you, well, you're not alone, and it's not just you struggling with this either. It's your brain, specifically 3 parts of your brain, each with its own desires and goals: your id, your ego, and your superego. Today, we're going to be talking about those 3 parts of your brain. But first, let me ask you a question. What do you think is the most important thing in life? Is it making money, getting famous, or having fun? Maybe it's all of the above. Well, whatever your answer, I'm sure that you agree that everyone wants to be happy. But sometimes we make choices that lead us away from happiness. We might stay in a bad relationship or keep hanging out with toxic friends, even though we know it's not good for us. Or maybe we overeat or stay up late watching TV, even though we have to wake up early the next day. These are all examples of behaviors that we know are bad for us, but we do them anyway because they make us happy in the moment. In psychology, there is a theory that tries to explain why we do things that we know are bad for us. This theory was developed by Sigmund Freud, the father of psychoanalysis. According to Freud, our behavior is motivated by 3 parts of our mind. The first part is the id. The id is our primitive mind. It operates on the pleasure principle, which means that it always wants what it wants when it wants it. Think of it like a baby. A baby cries when it wants something because it doesn't know any other way to communicate. Similarly, the id doesn't care about rules or consequences. It just wants what it wants, and it wants it now. The second part of our mind is the ego. The ego develops after the id, and it operates on the reality principle. This means that it takes into account the demands of the id and the constraints of the real world. The ego is like a parent who has to say no to their child sometimes. The ego has to find ways to satisfy the id's desires in a socially acceptable way, and it has to do it in a way that doesn't cause pain or discomfort. The third part of our mind is the superego. The superego is our moral conscience. It tells us what we should do and what we shouldn't do. It's like the little voice in our head that says, "Don't cheat on your boyfriend," or "Don't steal that car." The superego develops as we interact with other people and learn what is considered right and wrong. It's based on our values, morals, and ethics. Now that we've met the 3 parts of our mind, let's see how they work together. Let's imagine that you're at home and you're hungry. The thalamus, which is the part of our brain that deals with basic survival needs, sends a signal to your brainstem, which contains the id. The id interprets this signal as a need for food, and it starts to think about all the delicious meals that you could eat. The id is impulsive, and it wants to eat whatever you want right now. So it tells the brainstem to grab the nearest snack that you can find. The brainstem then relays this message to the ego, which has to figure out a way to satisfy the id's desire in a socially acceptable way. The ego knows that eating the nearest snack isn't the best choice, so it tells the brainstem to put the snack down and go to the kitchen to look for something healthier to eat. The ego is able to satisfy the id's desire for food without causing any pain or discomfort, and that makes us happy. But what happens when the id, ego, and superego conflict? Let's take another example. Imagine that you're at a party and you see someone that you really want to talk to. Your heart starts to race and your palms get sweaty. The thalamus sends a signal to your brainstem, which contains the id. The id thinks that you should just run up to that person and start talking to them, even if it means cutting in line or ignoring the person that you're currently talking to. The id is impulsive and it only thinks about its own desires. The brain stem then relays this message to the ego, which has to decide whether or not to follow the ID's advice. The ego knows that running up to that person would be rude, and it would probably make the person you're talking to feel bad. The ego also knows that it would make you feel bad if you ignored the person you're talking to. So the ego decides to stay where you are and continue talking to the person that you're currently talking to. The ego is able to satisfy the ID's desire for socialization without causing any pain or discomfort. And that makes us happy. But let's say that the superego is stronger than the ego in this situation. What would happen then? In this case, the superego would tell you that it's not okay to cut in line or ignore the person that you're currently talking to. The superego is concerned with what is right and wrong, and it knows that cutting in line and ignoring the person that you're talking to is not okay. The superego is able to stop the ego from following the ID's advice, and that makes us feel good about ourselves because we know that we did the right thing. So we can see that the id, ego, and superego work together to make us behave in certain ways. Sometimes one part of our mind is stronger than the other parts, and that determines how we will behave. For example, if the ego is stronger than the superego, we are more likely to act in a way that is in our own self-interest, even if it means doing something that is not morally right. On the other hand, if the superego is stronger than the ego, we are more likely to act in a way that is morally right, even if it means sacrificing our own self-interest. As you can see, the interactions between the ID, ego, and superego can get complicated. And that's why sometimes we have inner conflicts. These are times when the id, ego, and superego are all trying to get their way, and we have to choose which one to listen to. For example, let's say that you're on a diet and you're trying to lose weight. The ID wants you to eat the cake that is in front of you because it tastes delicious. The ego wants you to stick to your diet because it knows that eating the cake will make you feel bad about yourself. The superego wants you to eat the cake because it knows that it would be rude to refuse the offer. In this case, the id, ego, and superego are all pulling you in different directions, and it's up to you to decide which one to listen to. In general, we try to resolve these inner conflicts by compromising between the id, ego, and superego. For example, maybe you decide to eat a small piece of the cake instead of refusing the offer outright. This way, you are able to satisfy the ID's desire for cake without completely ruining your diet. You are also able to satisfy the superego's desire for politeness without making the host feel bad. When we are able to successfully resolve inner conflicts, we feel a sense of satisfaction and happiness. However, sometimes we are not able to resolve our inner conflicts, and that can lead to mental health problems such as anxiety and depression. When we are anxious, it means that the ego is overwhelmed by the demands of the id and the superego. When we are depressed, it means that the ego has given up on satisfying the desires of the id. If you want to learn more about how to manage your inner conflicts, I recommend checking out some of my other videos on anxiety and depression. Now I have a question for you. Which part of your mind do you think is the strongest? The ID, the ego, or the superego? Let me know in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do so by clicking the button below this video. Thanks for watching.